everybody. I know I've been YouTube silent for the last couple weeks. I kind of let myself get bogged down with end of the year work stuff, the holidays, travel, the New Year celebrations, training, everything like that. Haven't been able to put out a video recently, so I figured it was about time that I came back, especially with the new year, and went over some of my goals for 2019 and some of my New Year's resolutions. So without further ado, I'll jump right in. I'll start with running goals first, then I'll jump into my drinking goals, and then go over some of the goals for the I Run on Beer blog as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with running goals. Goal number one for 2019, cross the 1,000-mile barrier for the year. My mileage has been steadily climbing over the last couple years. 2017 was the first year I crossed the 500-mile mark. So 2018, I set a goal for myself of hitting 730 miles, an average of 2 miles a day, and kind of kept track of that month to month. Marathon training definitely helped. Running my first marathon, my mileage soared at the beginning of the year, and then some more intense half marathon training as well in the fall really helped with that, but I ended up hitting 911 miles. So a huge increase, over 300 miles more than what I achieved in 2017. So I'm hoping that in 2019 I can continue to grow, continue to climb, and finally hit that 1,000-mile mark. Obviously, I want those 1,000 miles to be healthy miles. I'm training for a marathon right now. Marathon training definitely has plenty of ups and downs, hills and valleys, especially this only being my second marathon, and I am teetering a little bit with injury right now, but I'm working very closely with my coach to make sure that I'm paying proper attention to that, following proper recovery standards, things like that, to make sure that I have a good race, but also to make sure that I can stay healthy throughout the year to hit that 1,000-mile goal. So that brings me nicely into goal number 2, and that's to set a new marathon PR. If you were following along with my training last year was the first year I ran a marathon, ran my first marathon ever, and I had a goal of breaking 4 hours. Through my training and things like that, I thought that was a reasonable pace, but obviously having never competed at that distance before, had no idea what to expect. After finishing last year's marathon at 4 hours and 19 seconds, just 19 seconds over my goal, of course I immediately went into aid stations that I had walked through. Had I started too slowly? Could I have finished a little bit stronger? If you go back of 19 seconds over 26 miles, that's less than a second per mile. So going over in my head things that I could change, strategies that I could adjust. It doesn't change the fact that I'm thrilled about my result. I finished my first marathon. That was goal number 1 of last year. But this year I definitely like to break that 4-hour mark. We'll see how it goes with my spring marathon. It is a little bit tougher of a course, a lot more hills, and being in March, the weather can be a little uncertain, but we'll see how it goes. I'll have more information about that race in the weeks to come, hopefully. Goal number 3 is a little bit different. It was actually a goal that I had set for myself last year as well and completely forgot about. And I think it's a goal that I've sort of revisited year after year, but it sort of sits on the back burner. So I'm hoping to give it more of a focus this year. But that's just to run more local races. I only ran 5 races in 2018. Looking back, it was actually kind of cool. I ran 5 races and set 5 PRs, which was nice to look back on. But I would like to be competing more and running more races. And I feel like the easiest way to do that is with local races. It's not only easier for me, less travel, etc. But I also like to support the local running community. We have a strongly established local running group on Long Island. And so I would just like to support them, but then also get more involved in the local running scene. So I've just set a goal to run at least 2 races on Long Island this year. That should be pretty easy with all the other races that are going on, especially with fun runs and things like that. Nothing crazy, maybe just some 5Ks, 10Ks here and there, but I would like to be running more and competing more in some of those local races. Goal number 4, and this ties back to that little injury that's been nagging me in my right leg that I talked about earlier. I really want to commit more to strength training. I definitely made some improvements last year, especially for my training for Rock and Roll Philly. I added strength-based cool downs to my running and was able to see a huge impact even just from that small tweak. I was able to run a lot faster without getting tired. My legs weren't hurting as much on the runs, but the biggest thing that I noticed was after the race I was able to recover so much more quickly. I was used to, after a half marathon, just being spent for at least 2 to 3 days. Hip flexors especially being sore, IT bands nagging me a little bit, those up and down stairs being pretty painful the first and even more so the second day after a race, and with the added strength training after Rock and Roll Philly, had hardly any of that. Didn't notice very much discomfort at all. Was pretty much able to get up and move in the next day with no pain, and felt like I could have gone on a run if I really wanted to, which is just something that was unheard of for me in years past. So I want to recommit to that for this year and take it to another level. That's something that I've been working a lot with my coach on, and mentioned to him is that I really want to focus more on getting some more solid strength training into my running, just to support my legs, legs, make sure I'm staying healthy, but then also to improve some of my times and hopefully get a little bit faster as well. All right, and my fifth and final running goal is actually undecided. It's the Wildcard Goal. Usually throughout the year, I like to have a big spring race goal and a big fall race goal. My spring race goal is obviously going to be the focus on the marathon. But the fall, I haven't decided on yet, and it's going to depend on a lot of factors and likely how the spring training goes. Depending on the spring marathon, I may want to add a fall marathon to try to push myself even further at that distance. Usually in the fall, or at least the last couple of years, I've picked a big half marathon to shoot for a new PR. I broke 140 for the first time in 2018. I'm hoping to get that number closer to 135 or maybe even break 135. Not sure if that would happen this year, but definitely something that I'd like to consider is adding that half marathon distance again and focus some more on the speed at the shorter distance, or shorter than the marathon, obviously. The last thing that I've thought about over the last couple of years, but is a huge commitment, haven't been ready to pull the trigger yet, is I would love to do a 50K trail race at some point in the future. Could be this year, maybe not. We'll see how everything goes, but definitely something I'm toying around with, something that would take a lot of thought and definitely a big commitment, so I want to make sure that if I'm making that decision, I know I'm ready to put in the training. Not a lot of trails or hills out on Long Island, so I know it would involve some training, probably upstate in the mountains and things like that to get some good climbing in, and just get some of the stability that comes with hiking and trail running, but something that I'd also definitely be interested in checking out. If not this year, probably next year, I would say. I just need to get it over with, sign up, do it. Like with the marathon, get the first one under my belt so I can see if it's something that I'm interested in pursuing in the future. But the idea of that long distance trail race really has me excited. All right, on to the beer goals, some of the fun stuff. I definitely, full disclosure, have a lot more goals in running just because I feel like it's a little bit easier to set goals in running than it is for beer drinking. But obviously I run on beer. Beer is a huge part of that. So I want to make sure that I'm setting some new goals for myself in that aspect as well. So goal number one for that, if you're familiar with Untappd, that's what I use to track all the beers that I've tried, and I used to use it and was very religious about tracking every single beer that I tried, and really fell off this year. Haven't used it hardly at all. Rarely open the app, and it might seem kind of trivial, but the reason that I like using it is A, it gives me a way to track like the types of beer that I'm trying and things like that, but it also, just the simple aspect of logging the beer, forces me to really focus on the beer that I'm trying. I usually try to add a couple notes about the beer, and forces me to take the time to enjoy it as opposed to just drinking the beer, moving on to the next thing, just being a little bit more mindful of the drinks that I'm having and appreciate the work that went into those beers. So hoping to get back on Untappd this year and get a little bit more consistent about marking those beers on the app so that I can make sure, like I said, just to slow down when it comes to the beer drinking and enjoy the ride as opposed to just going through the beers willy-nilly. And that brings me into goal number two, and that's to get more consistent with my beer review writing. I toyed around with a couple beer reviews last year. I have always had trouble writing reviews. I have a hard time just distinguishing unique tastes or things like that. For me, a lot of times drinking a beer, I can say if it's good, I can say if it's bad. If it's got some major flavors, like a real bitterness factor or something like that, easy to identify, but some of the more nuanced flavors I've had trouble with. So hoping this year to continue to force myself to at least just write down my notes and things like that to put out a couple more beer reviews. I think I had 2 or 3 last year. My goal for this year is going to be to put out at least one a month, hopefully some video reviews for YouTube as well, but just again to force myself to get into that habit. January will be the only month that I don't put out a beer review, and that's because I participate in Sober January. Just for personal reasons, I like to start the year off fresh, especially during marathon training. Last year was the first year that I did it, and having that month where no alcohol or anything like that, especially on the weekends, just helps me stay consistent with the training and build a strong routine, and then I can add alcohol in later on, but it just helps me prioritize the running and things like that, get into a standard schedule, and not letting a night out or anything like that impede that. So January, no beer review, but starting February, hopefully one for every month following for the rest of 2019. And lastly, goals for I Run on Beer as a whole. I don't have a ton of these, and they're more just things that are in my head. Didn't write them down as explicitly as I did my other goals, but a few things that I'd like to focus on. Last year, I really did a good job, I feel like, improving my posting consistency, which is something that I really wanted to work on. One of my resolutions for last year was coming up with a number of times that I wanted to post a week and making sure that I stick to that schedule. There were certainly some weeks that I slipped during the holidays and things like that. But overall, I was pretty much able to consistently put out at least least one blog post a week, if not two. So I'd like to keep up with that schedule and, if anything, just become a little bit more consistent. Along with that consistency, my email newsletter, I got in a pretty good routine of putting that out every other week towards the beginning of the year, switching it to weekly later on. I just want to make sure that I keep up with that moving forward. I let it slip off towards the end of the year, so hoping to reinvigorate the newsletter as well. So if you're interested in subscribing to the newsletter, I'll include a link below. There's a lot of good stuff, and make sure you see all the blog posts that come out, YouTube videos, pretty much any updates for I Run on Beer, I'll include in there, as well as any discounts I receive for any upcoming races or brands that you might want to take advantage of. I'll always include those in the emails as well. And then lastly, with YouTube, this is a new media that I've been branching out into, and I keep saying, I think with every video, that I'm hoping to post a little bit more consistently, and so I'm officially making that one of my resolutions for 2019. So hopefully keep an eye out for more videos. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you see those when they come out. I really appreciate it, really appreciate the views, the feedback, the comments that everyone's been giving me. If you do enjoy the video, please feel free to leave me a comment below. Not getting a ton, so it's very easy for me to read all of them and respond. I do my best to make sure I'm keeping up with the people who are enjoying the videos. So feel free to comment, let me know what you think of the videos, and hopefully look forward to seeing more this year. I'm making it a goal to put out at least once a month, but hoping to do more than that definitely. But set the once a month goal, that seems realistic and doable, and then hopefully continue to grow throughout the year. So thanks for watching. Those are my official goals and resolutions for 2019. I'm always interested to see what different goals runners set for themselves. So if you have any goals or resolutions that you've set for yourself this year, please make sure to let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel to see updates throughout the year on how I'm doing towards these resolutions. Hopefully see some of those video beer reviews that I mentioned before. And as always, you can follow me on my blog, irunonbeer.com. If you're looking for more consistent updates like day-to-day stuff, at irunonbeer on Instagram is huge. And I look forward to seeing you around. So thanks again for tuning in. Happy New Year. Cheers.